Hey everyone, I had the honor of talking to another Final X representative in Seth Gross, who is competing tomorrow in Stillwater actually. Obviously, we talked about Final X coaching and various other aspects of his career. It was a great time, and if you wanted more of Seth Gross's insights, please check out my Patreon with the full interview and multiple other unedited and early access videos. Also, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you're enjoying the interviews and, well, the rest of the content on the channel. But now, without further ado, this was a really good one, so let's let Seth Gross take it away. Just to start with this, congratulations, man, winning the World Team Trials. Looked really, really good. You just kind of want to walk through that tournament and just kind of the emotions of winning a big tournament like that at a really good 61 kilogram bracket, I might add.
Yeah. Thank you first of all, and thanks for having me on today. And yeah, just walking you through the tournament, right? It was a crazy tournament for me, that's for sure. I started first match, had a really good up and coming guy that I wrestled, and was actually down 3-12 in that match, and a crazy one. And probably not a very good first match, but I was able to come back and got a chance to get on top of him and got some turns, got myself back in the match, and ended up winning that one 13-12. But yeah, started off very slow, I guess. It wasn't moving my feet too well, wasn't getting my offense much, and he's a good wrestler too. So it was a one I just had to find a way to get through it, and dug deep. Thank God for pushing me when I was close to down and out that match. And then the next one, it was I wrestled Nico Megaludis, and he was the guy that I actually lost to at the U.S. Open in the semis. And so that was one I got to game plan a little bit for, because obviously wrestling somebody, you get to feel out what they do, and kind of the situations where he beat me in the previous match. So I was kind of a little more ready for that one, and had a game plan going in, and kind of executed that game plan pretty good, and was able to score off of a lot of his attacks and push the pace and kind of move him around the mat to take some bad shots on me, and was able to capitalize on those. And then yeah, last match was the 2 out of 3 where I wrestled Daniel DeShazer, and first one I think it was pretty controlled, got to the leg, scored some takedowns, and then the second one was a wild one, back and forth, and he hit me with a dirty 4-pointer on the edge, and so that was a fun match, kind of shootout, back and forth battle there. But once again, just kind of kept the feet moving, kept pushing the pace, and was able to end up getting that one 9-8. So
Yeah, for sure. And you were fun to watch all tournament. I can tell you that. And even at the US Open, just from a fan and a commentator perspective, that first match when you were down 13-12, 13-2, or yeah. What kind of mentality is just sort of built into you, or you've learned over the years to just sort of, when you're in those holes, just sort of just keep battling and make the right adjustments to get back in those matches and even win them?
yeah, I mean, the big thing is, right, keeping your composure in those situations. It's easy to start freaking out, doing stupid stuff, falling off the game plan, losing focus in matches where, right, you're down by 9 points. And so it was just kind of keeping my focus on, what can I do here and now in this moment to score points, to start building myself back into this match. And so I remember one time we went off the mat, and I think you got to push out or something to make it 10-3. And I kind of took a second there, like, to kind of regroup my mind and focus, and just rethink things, and took a second, just to say, hey, right, you're still here right now. You're in this match. You got plenty of time on the clock. Little by little, go figure this out. And I remember Coach Bono kind of saying, like, you just got to get on top of this guy one time and get your turns, and you're back in the match. And so that was just the focus. How do I get on top? Get my turns going, and so yeah, it's just kind of keeping your composure, right? Never. And I've probably been in that situation too many times, I guess, where I'm down big in matches and have to battle back from that. So that's something obviously got to work on moving forward. But being there too, and in the past, has helped me. So when I am there again, that, hey, there's always a fighting chance, and you're never down, you're never out, as long as you keep 1 point at a time.
Yeah, for sure. That's one of the reasons I asked it, because you do get in those positions a few times from some of the really, really exciting matches I've seen you in, and you always just keep your composure. Your winning percentage in those spots is very high. So that was partially the reason. So I was just really curious to pick your brain on that. And then your second match of the tournament, Nico Megaludis. You alluded to it a little bit earlier, but just feeling them at the open, and maybe other times that kind of help you sort of control that match in the semifinals of the trials.
Yeah, and I'd say the big thing from the U.S. Open to there is he was taking the hand fight to me. If you watch that first match, every time there was a break or out of bounds or restart, he was always the guy. He was getting his hands on me quick, kind of pushing forward in my face constantly. If I would try to break space, he'd chase down the space. And so this match, the focus was get your hands on him first, right? Getting your ties, getting your positions, and then you're gonna force him to shoot shots that aren't really there, and that's where I can actually start capitalizing and turning those things into my offense a little bit more. So that was kind of the biggest transition that I was looking at, and the biggest thing was just taking the hand fight to him instead of trying to always he comes in on a inside tie and I'm over tying and snapping off, and then things like that. So taking it to him and keeping the pace high.
For sure. Yeah, that was a great game plan, especially a guy like Nico Megaludis who has a high pace. So if you can match it, take the ground, it definitely worked out in a really awesome way for sure. And then DeShazer and kind of all tournament, you were really using sort of your length. Was that sort of the game plan going in there, using your length in that match? And then if not, what was sort of the game plan in that best 2 out of 3?
Yeah, and I wrestled DeShazer, another guy who I got to wrestle actually last year at the World Team Trials, and he's a guy who he's patient, right? He tries to stay in good position, and then he'll try to kind of out of nowhere, right? Sneak you with one, sting you with one. And so kind of thinking what his game plan would be, I knew he was trying to keep it close, and then he'd be trying to score right at the end, with those high pace attacks and putting things together at the end of matches. So
Yeah.
it was similar where, right, I got to stay on him, never give him a chance to breathe really, and then never a chance to really set up his blast or his hard 30 his second sprints at you.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of that. And I always, for my shots and stuff, right, I always moving my feet, using my length to get to the low ankles, things like that is always big. So that's one big thing that my coach always yells in the corner is just moving your feet, changing levels, move feet, change levels. And so that's kind of always what my biggest focus is when my feet are moving and my hands are moving and I'm doing those level changes, the match usually is going better for me. So
you talked about Coach Bono a little bit. I just sort of want to dive into your guys' relationship, just sort of how that's developed over the years, what it was like transitioning from being your college coach. Now he's more of like your professional freestyle coach. Then you guys are also colleagues together, head coach and assistant coach. So just kind of breaking those relationships down, how it's evolved through the different aspects of wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's Coach Bono, Coach Reeder, both. It's been kind of the same thing since the moment I met them. They were just guys that were super positive and then super consistent, high energy. And this is one thing, I've always struggled with before meeting these guys is I wasn't the most self-disciplined, consistent guy out there, right? During the off season, I wasn't necessarily always doing the right diet and training the right way and things like that. So I got around these guys and they were super consistent. The energy was there every day. They were always doing, just the right things. And so I surrounded myself with those two immediately and just tried to almost mimic what they were doing, match their energy, match their consistency, stick to, their organization, their planning, everything. And I tried to take a lot from what they did because I knew they were successful, and Bono made world teams, Reeder made world teams. They won NCAA titles. So that was kind of early on in the relationship, was just trying to mimic those guys and kind of, use their formula. And, obviously the relationships developed where I've been, we've gotten a lot closer and we're very, really good friends with both Bono and Reeder now, and more than just, coach athlete relationship. And, it's still the same thing because I know these guys are experienced coaches now and I know they've had success coaching. And so just, I just observe a lot and observe what they do, how they have their impact on guys. And I remember what impacted me and things like that. So being able to take, what they do really well and use it to coach the guys on the UW team has been fun. But really, they've just been great leaders for me to look up to and develop from. And it's been unbelievable.
For sure. Do you think just your sponge mentality, constantly observing, being around the best, has sort of helped you to constantly keep growing at this point in your career as well?
Absolutely. And right, you can break that down to, even the wrestling level, that's one big thing that I say I do a fairly good job of is, making those adjustments, never never staying the same, right? If I wrestled the same I did 2-3 years ago, guys would be destroying me, right? It's always evolving, always getting better, always developing new things in every position, presenting new attacks, figuring out how I can wrestle better in parterre. It's always adding to what you do. And that's kind of my mentality for every, for wrestling, for coaching, for, in my relationship, with my wife, my family, everything, how can I always improve and be a little bit better? And how can I continue to develop? And so that's kind of my mindset for everything that I approach is, right, being consistent, but always evolving and moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And then one thing I love asking the athletes, especially ones that move around, whether it's after college to a new RTC or in college. So you went from a very specific area, South Dakota State, and then transferred to Wisconsin. What was
Yeah.
that transition like? Were there some high lows, and just what was it like going from simply Big 12 to Big 10, or just, I'm sure
Yeah.
South Dakota State to Wisconsin's way different.
Yeah, I say the biggest, I mean, you can go wrestling wise, the biggest transition, right? You're wrestling a pretty top-notch schedule week in, week out. But honestly, the biggest thing for me was obviously I had back surgery that final year I was at South Dakota State. And so I was in a dark place kind of at that time, right? Whenever, I can't wrestle, I can't work out, all I can do is really sit there and every once in a while get up and walk during the back surgery. It was a 6 month recovery process. So it was tough. And, I was looking for a grad school that had a business school, and South Dakota State didn't have that. And Bono and Reeder were both at Wisconsin now, and those are my guys. So I made the transition over to Wisconsin, and obviously, yeah, a lot bigger school, a lot bigger campus. But it wasn't too much of a, I was so comfortable with Bono and Reeder that when I got here, it wasn't really a huge, culture shock or anything like that. And yeah, the wrestling, it was obviously coming off of back surgery and then jumping into Big Ten schedule was probably not the easiest thing on my body. And then added on top of that, I was trying to make it down to 57 kilos for the Olympics at the same time. And so it was an up and down year for me. I didn't think I was super consistent. I don't think I was wrestling at my potential, but it was, at the end of the day, it was fun, right? Getting out there, being able to wrestle RBY, DeSanto, Rivera, right? These guys on a weekly basis. It was a blast. I love wrestling, guys, and feeling out what they're good at and stuff like that. So it was fun, and it was a cool transition to get that experience as well.
Yeah, no, that is really awesome. You mentioned just kind of being in that dark place, just for athletes that do get injured. What kind of kept you like on the right path? Like, all right, we're going to win going for another national title. We're going to make these world teams.
Yeah.
What sort of kept you just when you could only walk or walk for those 6 months?
Yeah. And I mean, one of the big things I always, important to me, important in my life is my faith, right? God's kind of my rock and my foundation and everything. And so being able to kind of lean on him in the times of, struggle and when I'm in those dark places has really pushed me through it. And one thing that I emphasize, because I know that so many people, have surgeries like this and they never come back the same. And it's always a struggle and this and that, was just constantly just saying positive things to myself. And it was hard, right? Because I remember when I was first starting to get back to drilling, the first thing I want to say, there's no way I'm ever going to be able to wrestle at a high level again. I can barely, change my levels to take a shot. I can barely do this. I can barely do that. But it was the second those thoughts come in my head, how do I get rid of them and how do I focus on the positive? Right. I did a little bit better than yesterday. Right. My back it hurt today, but I was able to do this that I couldn't do 2 weeks ago, and just focusing on the little positives. Because when you start looking at all the negative, and it's easy to find that negative when your mind's in that spot, you start going downhill. So it's just focusing on the positive things right in front of you, and, trying to keep the mindset in that progression and the consistent little things that are going to get you back to where you were. And so that was kind of the big thing, is just leaning on God through it all and trusting that, if the plans for me to continue to wrestle again, that I'm going to be healthy and I'm going to get ready to go somehow. And if not, obviously God's got a different plan for my life. But either way, I had to be comfortable with that and accepting of that, and just trusting the process and plan.
Yeah, for sure. That's such a big part of wrestling, is just that positive mentality, even in super negative moments. I mean, that's how greats become even better. So I'm glad you put a light on that. And then I also wanted to get to your faith. I just sort of wanted to just hear how you implements God's words into just your wrestling and how it pushes you even further. Because I know that's a huge part of your life and everything.
Yeah, and I get a lot of questions about that. Do you think God, helps you win matches and this and that? And I'd say, it's the work you put in, it's the things you do, it's the consistent, actions that you're doing that are gonna help you win wrestling matches. But one thing that I feel like God really helps on as far as athletes and stuff like that is just the mental side of wrestling and everything like that. Because I feel like knowing that at the end of the day, win, lose a wrestling match, no matter what happens out there, right? I got an amazing God who still loves me and who still has a plan for my life. Even if I go and get beat first round of the tournament, or I get beat, in the final, whatever it is, right? I still got a lot of amazing things going for me in my life. And so it takes all the pressure off of the wrestling matches. And that allows you to really just go out there, compete, and let it fly and have fun. Because there's so many people that lose right here before they actually go out in the wrestling match. And that's one thing that my faith really helps me eliminate, is any of the pressure, any of the outside noise, and just knowing that, hey, I love wrestling. It's fun. I enjoy every second I'm out there on the mat, and I'm going to try my best to win. And if I don't, that's all right. Right. I have a lot of good things outside of wrestling. So it was just kind of the shift of my identity being wrestling to my identity being God. And that kind of really remove the pressure for me.
Very well said. Yeah, I know obviously from social media and just everything that faith's a huge part, and just forever listens. That's great insight that I wanted everyone to hear from someone who's very, very open about it. So thank you very much for that. Obviously.
Absolutely.
And then back to sort of like the in between your last year of college wrestling in Wisconsin. You mentioned it a little bit coming down to 57. I'm just sort of curious what it was like training folk style and freestyle, and then obviously that transition down to 57 kilograms.
Yeah. I mean, so the freestyle folk style transition, it's, I've been doing it for, forever since I grew up. It was always wrestle all folk style season, right? As soon as state was done, jump into freestyle. And so I was kind of used to that transition just growing up and everything. So that wasn't a huge deal. Obviously it was a little different because I'm wrestling a freestyle tournament in January, and then the week later I'm wrestling folk style again. But I've always done both styles, so I was pretty used to that. That wasn't too hard. But the weight was a struggle, right? I made it down to 57 kilos for the Bill Farrell in end of December, early January, and it was just extremely hard to put weight back on after that, put muscle back on, and and I was really a small, skinny, frail 133 pounder for a lot of that year, just doing that, and so it made it tough. I didn't deal my best, and like I said, on top of that, dealing with the back injury, 57 probably looking back wasn't the best option for me. And that's kind of moving forward. I'm not going to do 57 anymore after that experience. And I know my body's, I got a frame that I can fill out, go 65. But yeah, it was tough, and it's not fun, losing that much weight. It kind of those few months were pretty miserable for me. And then the tough thing on top of that, right, I was ready to make 57 for the last time right after season, and then the Olympics get delayed a year, and so I kept my body small for an additional year, and so yeah, it wasn't fun. It wasn't a fun process getting down to 57, and I wouldn't say I didn't enjoy wrestling, because I loved wrestling. Was the only thing that I enjoyed about it. The weight stuff though made it not as fun of time. And so yeah, it's nice to be at 61 kilos, and then the next cycle, unless they change the weights, will be going up to 65.
Have you ever thought maybe like going 65 on a non-Olympic year or anything like that?
Yeah, I was kind of honestly up in the air this year on if I was going to go 61 or 65, because I really hit the weight room hard. I got a lot bigger. I got a lot stronger, and I got up to probably, I don't know, 150, 155, and pretty strong and still pretty lean there. And I ended up wrestling the super match, was at 66 kilos. And I wrestled okay there. I wrestled Evan Henderson, lost 1-point match with like 5 seconds left. So I knew I could compete with those 65 kilo guys. And then I went out to Bill Farrell. I wrestled 65 there and ended up winning that. And as I was making 65 a few different times, it was just extremely easy. Like I was a few pounds under for both those events.
Mhm.
And as I kept working out and stuff and just eating right, my weight just kind of really shifted down quickly. So I ended up weighing out a lot of practices closer to 140 once I was getting into competition mode. So I was like, I'm probably not quite where I want to be a full 65 kilo guy yet. So it's like, I'm gonna go 61 this year, and next year, it'll be kind of the same thing. I'm gonna try to get as big, as strong as I can, kind of grow my frame a little bit, and I'll have more time this year. So hopefully get up, be a full size 65 guy. But if not, right, I'll go back down to 61. But yeah, it's just kind of listening to my body, seeing how I was feeling at the time, and yeah, so I felt good at 65. I felt strong. I felt quick, but it was just, I just knew that since 61 was so easy to make, so I was going to do
What
it.
were some things you didn't realize were so pivotal in coaching that you never would realize as an athlete?
Yeah, coaching can be exhausting. That's for sure.
That's what I've been hearing.
Going to, I remember kind of the first one was actually right after the COVID. And I got hired on during COVID, so it was pretty crazy time to start my coaching career. But I remember one of the first tournaments we went to was the U23s out in Lincoln, Nebraska, and that was kind of, one second.
All good.
That
All
was
good.
kind of one of the big tournaments that I first coached at, and we had a lot of athletes going. And so I remember 2 days straight of just running from mat to mat to mat, coaching and right, you getting up early, making sure guys are making it down to weight, and you're staying up late, making sure they're on weight, and it's pretty nonstop. I remember actually we have these Aura rings, and I burn like more calories than I do in like ever during matches where the guys are wrestling. It's different when you're an athlete, right? You focus on your match, and then you go sleep and relax and recover, and then you wrestle, and then right. So it's pretty laid back. But coaching, it's nonstop, and you go and do whatever your guys need to be ready to go. And right, I end up warming up 2, 3, 4 guys, and if they need multiple stuff, and so it was. I love it. I love it. I absolutely loved every second of it. But it's hard. It's hard. It's exhausting. But yeah, it was fun. But to flip the switch on that, I think I've learned so much as far as coaching, and you go up and down the UW lineup and being able to work with these guys. Not only, I think I helped them a little bit, but they helped me a ton, looking where Eric Barnett's really good has helped me in certain areas, looking where Joe Zargo's good. He helps me out with a lot of stuff, and I help him, and Gomez, and right, just working with all these different athletes and really picking apart positions and things like that. It's, I help them, they help me, and I learn just as much as they do for me, that I learn from them. So it's been cool. And just, at the end of the day, the feeling of seeing them achieve their goals on top of all that is it's a special thing to be able to coach and train with these guys.
That's awesome. I love asking that question to athletes that are coaches now, just hearing it's sort of funny to hear just the things they never would have expected with coaching. And just hearing the stories with that for people who are interested in coaching, and then just hearing the great things about it and the training that you've just sort of learned through the process of going down to 57 and also bulking up to 65, and then just being a nutrition mentor probably for your athletes. Is there anything that you've noticed that you've changed about your diet, or that you learned like, oh, I should try this, that's a little better throughout like these past couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, I could talk about diet all day, because I've actually kind of in the past 6 months completely switched over what I do for my diet. I actually do a carnivore diet, which is pretty interesting for athletes and a little bit different.
I've had a couple of buddies who've done that.
But yeah, I'm full on a carnivore diet. I eat 0 vegetables. I eat fruit for my carbs, and I do things a little bit different than probably most people. I do. There's actually, I forget the name of the doctor, but there's a book called Win, and he kind of breaks down nutrition, and he breaks down how to recover, how to train, how to sleep. And that's been a huge book over the past year or 6 months that I've been really digging into, and feel like I've been learning a lot about it. And we have a full-time nutritionist at UW too that works with the guys. But yeah, last 6 months I've been all carnivore diet, and it's been unbelievable. My body, one of the big things that I had read on it before kind of diving in was just how it removes the inflammation in your body and your joint health, and helps with that a lot. And I have a lot of nagging injuries still going on that won't stop bugging me. And actually switching to this diet has helped a ton with just removing that inflammation, helping my body feel a lot better consistently. So it's been good. And I won't go into too much detail because there's a lot to it, but that's kind of my shift in the last 6 months.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Yeah. I didn't know that was because I know about the carnivore diet, but it's cool to hear the results because I haven't met someone who's done it that long, that consistently, but to each their own. I'm really glad it's working.
Yeah, and it kind of a blessing for me because actually before that, I hated vegetables already and didn't really like them, so I was forcing them down and this and that. But no, it's been good. It's been very helpful, and I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I figured you'd be a good or interesting guest to ask just sort of about diet questions, considering you've done the really trying to shrink your body and then they're really trying to build it up. And then just the last couple of questions I really like asking guests. So you were originally going to Iowa, right? Just to clarify.
Yeah, I did go to Iowa for 1 year. Yeah,
Okay, yeah,
freshman year.
that's what I thought. So just in your college decision process back in high school, what were some other schools you were kind of looking at? What sort of drew you to Iowa? And then after Iowa might not have worked out, what drew you to South Dakota State?
So the original process, it was Iowa, Okie State, North Carolina, and Minnesota. And I took all those visits. One of the big things at the time was just the lightweight room that Iowa had. They were one of the best teams in the country. I wanted to get a little bit away from home. They had Corey Clark, Tony Ramos, Thomas Gilman, all those guys that I'd have to train with there, Brent Metcalf. And so it was just kind of how where do I think I can do the very best and achieve my goals. And so that was wasn't a whole lot. I didn't look as much as I should have at the outside things, how relationships, how I like the city, how I like a lot of other things. It was just, where can I be the best wrestler I can be? And probably, like I said, probably wasn't the best way to look at it coming out. But that's kind of how I came to that decision is I think I can be the best wrestler possible at Iowa. And that was, like we talked about a little bit earlier, my identity was wrestling at the time, and my identity probably wasn't my faith. And so I went down to Iowa, and I ended up making some mistakes there, getting in some trouble, and decided that I probably best I move on from Iowa, look for a new place. So next was, I was looking around again. I looked at UNI, Minnesota, South Dakota State, and honestly, just getting in trouble and having the court stuff going on and this and that. A lot of schools didn't necessarily want me there. There's a lot of smaller schools, D1, and then there was a lot of D2, D3 schools. But I remember just the day I called Bono, he basically said, like, hey, we've watched your career. I know what you did, blah, blah, come check it out. And he didn't really say too much else at the time, but just said, come check it out. We'll talk when you get here. And I remember I actually drove down the next day, and I remember stepping in his office, and the first thing he said is, tell me exactly what happened. Tell me what the situation was, and tell me it's never going to happen again, pretty much. And I looked him in the eye, and at the time I probably wasn't supposed to tell anybody about details as far as the case or anything of that, but I told him every little thing that happened, every little detail, and told him, you'll have zero problems with me from the second I step on campus. And he was like, well, we'd love to have you there. I've already talked to compliance, talked to everybody at the school, and they're okay giving you a second chance and letting you into school. And so that, and they had an up and coming team, a great schedule, a lot of things there that, once again, it was a little bit away from home, but close enough where I could always go see family and stuff like that. So right away, I think the next day I called him and said I was in.
Wow, that's incredible. And I'm sure myself and several others are very glad that's how it ended up. And then obviously the journey through South Dakota State was awesome. You were a runner-up national champ. And I'd just love to just hear your thoughts on that national title run. Just obviously the NCAA tournament, so many people say just how crazy of a run it is, just the rush of the crowd. How'd you deal with the crowd? How'd you deal with going one match at a time? And then what were the emotions of winning a national title?
Yeah, it was a long process, right? My freshman year, I was around a 12 guy, and that kind of gave me that national experience, at least being there, being in that crowd. It was in New York City that year, so it was pretty crazy atmosphere. And then the next year, I felt like I was prepared. I wrestled lights out up until the finals. I majored. I think I majored. Yeah, everybody I wrestled up until that point. Majored Cade Brock in the semis, and I had Corey Clark, who had lost to two of the guys actually that I beat the quarters and semis. He lost them like the last 2-3 weeks of season, and I just, for whatever reason, it was a completely even different atmosphere going into those finals matches compared to anything else. You got the crowd, and then there was the whole story behind Seth Gross versus Iowa, and the place, every interview was asking me about the situation, about how I got in trouble, this and that, and really I just couldn't get it all out of my head, and mentally it was just exhausting. I mentally drained myself before that match, and was thinking a lot at the time about the decisions I made, the trouble I was in, and wasn't as focused I should have been on my wrestling. And so I went out there, and I was honestly mentally drained before I even got out there. And you look at my other matches that year, I never got tired, never got exhausted, nothing. And I looked exhausted, a couple minutes into that match. And so I ended up losing that year. And then I came back, had a crazy, crazy run, made the finals again. And I remember my focus that next year was just, I'm not even going to, because you win the semis, you don't wrestle till the next night. So you almost got 24 hours of sitting and thinking about what's about to happen. But that next year, I decided, I won the semis. I got down to weigh in the next morning, and all I did that day. My sister actually lived in Cleveland, pretty close to where NCAAs were, and so I went and hung out at her house. I played board games with my family. We had breakfast. Literally, just didn't even think about wrestling. And then 2 hours before go time, flip the switch. Now it's time to kind of zone in, get in the zone, and think about wrestling for a little bit. So I wasn't as mentally drained. I felt ready to go that time, and was able to go out there and have a little bit better performance.
Yeah, I can't even imagine the mental drain that first finals had. But then it was awesome to hear the experience of that really helped you in that next year. And congratulations for that too. You were an amazing college wrestler to watch. I'm sure you got the gist of that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then just leaning into the last two questions, this one I ask all my athletes because I just love hearing it. What's been your favorite match of all time, just sort of to wrestle? College, freestyle, it could be high school or grade school, man. I don't spill.
Yeah. Out of all of them, I definitely say the super match between me and Bryce Meredith, where I was number one at the time. He was number one at the time. And
Very awesome match. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just two small schools that weren't really, big news all the time, being the sole focus of the wrestling community for a couple, for a day or whatever it was. But it was just cool to get the support and love from the whole wrestling community when we did that. And with the new rules and everything, you don't see it as much because I had to weigh in at 133 and wrestle 140. Right? You can't weigh in. I couldn't weigh in at 141. Then I couldn't wrestle 133 for 2, 3, 4 weeks. So I had to make 133 and then bump up to wrestle him. And so there's a lot that went into it, but it was just cool that both coaches were down to make it happen. It was cool that it happened in a little city of Brookings, South Dakota. So it was a really cool opportunity and thing that we got to do.
For sure. That makes me think of another question. I've heard that city of South Dakota is actually really, really big into wrestling. Is that true? And just how did that kind of help your journey at South Dakota?
Yeah. I mean, it was crazy. First year I got there, not at all. A couple hundred fans in the stadium, but by my last year there was 2,000-3,000 fans at every duel. Some of our big ones would get 4,000 to 5,000, and it was unbelievable just the support that city has for wrestling. And all right, there's not a whole lot going on in South Dakota and that kind of area, so people love to get to those wrestling duels and support. And yeah, they're a very knowledgeable fan group, and just the arena you're in is so like kind of condensed that it's like a little bee's nest in there. And so it was a cool place to wrestle in.
Awesome. Yeah, no, great to hear, because I've heard a lot of stories about how that environment can get wild. That's just cool to hear for a small program like that, especially. I'm sure it was intense for the Bryce Meredith match as well.
Yeah.
And then just last question. I know you rate a lot of coffee based on your social media. What's your favorite spot to go in Madison, Wisconsin, just to shout it out on here?
Yeah, I mean, I go to Indie Coffee just because that's where we go with all the guys there and we hang out. they have some good waffles. I don't necessarily go to the coffee shop for coffee, but they got some good waffles, and they'll convince me to try some coffee here and there. But yeah, best one was one of the caramel ones I thought was okay, but besides that, not too many good coffees yet.
How do you like your coffee?
I don't know. I just whatever people hand me, I try, and that's
Whatever's in
about
front
it.
of you.
Yep.
That's funny. That's funny. But Seth Gross, thank you very much. Glad we got to talk college freestyle. Best of luck in
Thank you. I appreciate
Stillwater
it.
at Final X. It was amazing talking to you. I love having guys on here. If you got anything for me, I'd love to hear it. But besides that, thank you a million.
Yeah. Just right back at you. Thanks for having me on. Always love jumping on and talking and getting on these things. So appreciate you having me.
Yeah, no problem.